What does it take for a dream to survive when the world keeps turning the lights off? Long before the glow of a global stage, before cameras and applause, there was only darkness, not the dramatic kind. The quiet kind that settles into small streets, tin roofs, and tired homes. In a narrow neighborhood in the Philippines, nights arrived early, streetlights flickered, electric wires hung like tired veins above cracked roads. Inside a modest room, three young men stood barefoot on a concrete floor. The space was barely enough to stretch their arms, yet it carried years of hope. LED wires lay tangled near their feet, repaired again and again with tape and patience. Eli, the leader, moved with careful control. He was calm, steady, shaped by responsibility far heavier than his age. He carried the dreams of others without ever naming them. Mako followed with sharp precision. Disciplined, silent, shaped by sacrifice, every step he took carried the memory of long workdays and short nights. Jadon moved last, gentle, observant, emotional. His movements came from feeling rather than force, as if the light itself guided him. They were not chasing fame, they were chasing proof. Proof that effort mattered. Proof that silence could still be seen. Every practice session ended the same way, with exhaustion and quiet doubt. Bills waited. Families depended on them. Dreams felt selfish in a world that demanded survival first. The LED lights flickered to life, weak but determined. Each glow felt like a heartbeat, fragile, alive. They imagined a stage they had never seen, an audience they had never met, a man whose eyes judged without mercy. But in that small room, none of that mattered yet. What mattered was staying together. What mattered was not giving up when no one was watching. Because sometimes dreams are born not in bright places, but in corners the world forgets, and the most powerful light is the one that refuses to go out. Dreams feel heavier when they are shared. As the days moved closer to departure, the room felt smaller, not because of the walls, but because of the pressure that filled the air. Every practice carried more than movement. It carried expectation. Ili felt it the most. Leadership had never been a title to him. It was a promise to protect the others from doubt, even when it lived inside him. He woke before sunrise and slept long after midnight, not just to rehearse steps, but to rehearse belief. If he stood strong, maybe the others would too. Mako carried his burden in silence. Discipline was his shield. He pushed harder when fear whispered louder. Mistakes were not allowed, because failure felt too expensive. He had once almost walked away. Responsibilities had pulled him back, family needs, reality's sharp edges, but each time he looked at the crew, he stayed, not for the dream, but for the people holding it. Jadon carried his weight differently. Emotion sat close to the surface. He felt every misstep deeply, as if it questioned his worth. Yet he also felt the light most clearly. When doubt arrived, it didn't shout. It crept in quietly, during pauses. During exhaustion, the question lingered in the air, what if this isn't enough? There were nights when the lights failed mid-practice. Wires sparked. The room fell dark. No one moved. No one spoke. Then someone would reconnect a wire. The glow would return, not brighter, but steadier. In those moments they understood something powerful. They were not carrying a performance, they were carrying each other. Every step was a promise. Every formation was trust. If one fell, the others would hold. If one doubted, the others would believe harder. Because the greatest strength they had was not talent. It was unity forged in struggle. The stage did not feel real at first. It stretched wider than anything they had ever imagined, glowing under countless lights that erased every shadow. The air felt colder, heavier. Behind the curtain, the world they knew disappeared, the narrow room. The flickering wires, the quiet nights of practice, everything felt distant now. The audience was a sea of faces, blurred by brightness and distance. Thousands of eyes waited, patient but demanding. Judgment hung in the silence, thick and unmoving. Illy stood still, grounding himself. Responsibility pressed against his chest like a weight he could not set down. Every step he would take on that stage carried years of sacrifice. Not just his own, but everyone's. Marco focused on his breathing. Control was his anchor. His body remembered the movements even as his mind raced. Mistakes were no longer small here. They echoed. Jadden felt exposed. The vastness of the room made his heartbeat louder. Emotion surged without warning. This was the moment his feelings had been preparing him for, or the moment they would betray him. Then there was the man at the center of the table. Simon Cowell watched without blinking. No expression, no signal of approval or doubt, just stillness. That stillness felt louder than noise. Time slowed as they stepped forward. The floor beneath their feet felt unfamiliar, almost alive. Darkness wrapped around the stage as the lights dimmed. For a breathless moment there was nothing, no music, no movement, only the sound of hearts beating in sync. This was the edge of everything they had worked for, the place where fear could win or transform. As the first lights on their bodies flickered awake, the crew crossed an invisible line. There was no turning back. They were no longer practicing. They were no longer dreaming. They were about to become a story written in light. The darkness did not last long. A single thread of light pulsed across the stage, soft and uncertain, like a heartbeat searching for rhythm. Then another followed, then many more. The crew began to move, not fast, not loud, intentional. The LED wires traced shapes through the air, drawing emotions instead of patterns. Every motion carried meaning. Loss bent their bodies low. Hope lifted them slowly back up. The stage transformed into a living canvas. The light spilled outward, wrapping the silence in color and motion. The audience leaned forward without realizing it. Breath was held. Time loosened its grip. Illy led with quiet strength. His movements were steady, anchoring the story as it unfolded. Years of responsibility flowed through his posture, turning weight into purpose. Marco's precision cut clean lines through the darkness. Each step landed with control, sharp yet restrained. Discipline became beauty. Sacrifice became symmetry. Jadden moved like emotion itself. His light flickered, expanded, softened. Where others showed strength, he showed vulnerability. The glow around him felt alive, responding to every rise and fall of feeling. Together, they became something more than dancers. They became memory. They became struggle. They became survival. The lights shifted. Darkness swallowed the stage again, then burst open in waves of brilliance. The LED painted stories of falling, breaking, reaching, and standing again. No words were needed. The message moved directly into the heart. At the judges' table, stillness finally cracked. Simon Cowell leaned forward. His eyes followed every movement now. The unblinking stare softened into something else: focus, recognition, respect. As the final formation took shape, the lights gathered into one powerful image, a symbol of unity, of shared burden, of hope refusing to fade. And then it happened. The golden buzzer fell. Golden light poured from above like rain after a long drought. The stage disappeared beneath it. So did the fear. In that moment, the crew was no longer unseen. They were undeniable. The sound of applause faded, but the glow lingered. The stage felt empty now, yet heavy with everything that had just happened. The lights on their bodies had dimmed, but the warmth remained, a quiet reminder that they had survived the impossible. Illy exhaled for the first time in what felt like years. The weight he had carried, the pressure to lead, to protect, to succeed, began to lift. Not entirely. Some burdens never fully vanish, but they could breathe again, together. Marco looked around, eyes wide, heart still racing. He realized that every long night, every sacrifice, every moment he had doubted himself was now reflected in the faces of the audience. Recognition, yes, but more than that, understanding. The world had seen them, truly seen them. Jadon, glowing more than any LED could, felt something unfamiliar, pride that was gentle, not flashy. He had always believed in feeling the story rather than telling it. Now he understood that others could feel it too, that their lights, fragile and flickering at first, had become a language everyone could understand. Outside the theater, the night waited. The streets they had once known seemed smaller now. Every corner, every cracked pavement, every dark alleyway where they had practiced, it all led here. Their journey was bigger than fame or applause. It was about persistence. It was about refusing to let darkness win. And yet the most important lesson lingered quietly. Dreams do not always require grandeur to exist. Sometimes they only need courage. Sometimes they only need light. As they left the stage, cameras and flashes behind them, they held onto that light. Not just the glow of LED, but the glow of each other's belief. They had carried each other through fear, through doubt, through exhaustion, and that bond, stronger than applause, stronger than recognition, was the real golden buzzer. For the first time, they allowed themselves to imagine the future. A future where hope never flickers, even when the world seems determined to dim it. A future where light, both literal and metaphorical, could illuminate hearts everywhere. And in that quiet after the storm, they smiled, because they had learned the truth. Sometimes the brightest lights come from the places the world forgets, and sometimes those lights can change everything.